concerns about China, concerns about the economy. How much does that, or should it play out into the rest of the market?
Right. Well, I think this fans the flames of anxiety in the market because we got the news. We were worried about China slowing. The concern is we've got global growth slowing. Obviously, China's a big part of that. There was some softness in the initial China manufacturing PMI data. And then you have this news out of Apple. So we're in a new year. It's great that 12/31 has come and gone. We're getting a fresh start. And everybody went away for a week and forgot. But all those concerns that we had in November and December that were making the market nervous are still around. And so we're going to start hearing more of that. Data like this doesn't help. The market's going to focus on this. It's an interesting contrast that Nike didn't say anything about this when they reported 2 weeks ago. And they were talking about, that China was actually a good market for them. So very different. It's concerning to the market overall just because that macro is what everybody's focused on right now. And until we get more management teams out, fortunately, which is coming with earnings, but talking about the specifics of their market, I don't think the market's going to be very discerning about this. And I think it's going to be very reactive emotionally.
Mm-hmm. And Andres, I guess, as you said, earnings estimates for this year in aggregate probably have to come down from that 7 to 8%. Consensus at the moment. The market's down 15% off its highs, give or take. So clearly, the overall market has kind of tried to get a preview of what's going to happen there. But then we see Apple come out and confirm what the market was worried about, and you still get incremental downside. So that's what I have a question about. You hear a lot of people come out and say, wow, the market's discounting no earnings growth this year, assuming just looking at the multiple. But the process of cutting estimates is tough.
That's right. And I think you got to remember also where valuation was starting from. Right? So in essence, it's not even back to, it's close to back to historical averages, depending if you're using CAPE or if you're using next 12 months price to earnings. Ultimately, if you look at that 7 to 8% EPS growth, roughly 1/3 of that was supposed to be margin expansion. How is that going to occur with everything else that we just discussed? So I think there is going to be continued earnings revisions on the downside. The interesting thing is that we're going to see, in my mind, we're going to see more of this blaming the trade wars discussion. One comment on Apple. I know that we kind of beat this horse to death, but I actually think there's more idiosyncratic risk here than people think. Ben Thompson out of Strategy has talked about this for a while, which is there's a big difference between the China market and here. In the U.S., iOS is basically a huge moat for Apple. Like, I'm not changing my iPhone anytime soon. I might lengthen how long I keep my phone, but I'm not changing to anything else. In China, WeChat is essentially fungible, and everyone uses WeChat for everything. Meaning you could change from iPhone to sorry, I always pronounce it right.
You're not locked in because of
Huawei. Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And for that reason, I think we're going to see more volatility in those numbers unless Apple actually starts to innovate further on what they offer, because people could buy Samsung, they could find other options in China.
Tightening up their ecosystem there.
Yes.
Like it is here. For me, it's music, it's photos, all sorts of other things. That doesn't exist.
Well, over there, in essence, my point is here people use the iPhone pretty much for everything, right? And if I were to change to, let's say, Samsung, I would have to actually lose a lot of the things that I use there, for instance, for my chat. In China, people pay with WeChat. They use chat through WeChat. And you could literally switch that from your iPhone to a Samsung overnight because WeChat is not owned by Apple. So I think that's something that's missed, is that now, I don't know, a quarter of earnings come from China. So they could hide this volatility earlier, but going forward, they can't hide that anymore. They have to innovate.
Does this concern you, though, on a broader scale for other companies that are doing business in China, or you think this is more Apple
The reason
specific?
I kind of go in depth in there is that I think we're going to see more companies blame it on the trade wars. If they, hey, bad quarter, especially after 20% earnings growth last year, let's just, trade wars. Let's blame it on trade wars. Right? So I think we're going to see more of that. Now, 30% of companies last quarter already were mentioning trade wars, but they were saying, but I think we'll be fine.
Right.
I think more of those conversations are going to be saying, well, no, actually, look, this is why we're unable to.
Is it the trade wars or is it the economy? Because I think I'm more worried about an economic downturn that then comes across to us, across the
It comes back. And I think when I look at it, I think there's, it's tough for us because both things are hitting at once. And the trade wars is a nice excuse. I think 2 quarters ago, we saw the CEOs come out and say, yeah, we're concerned concerned about the news with China, but they couldn't really quantify it. We go back last quarter, they started to quantify it, and it made people nervous. And that's where you saw the market start to really pay attention, because they put dollars behind the impact, and it started to be a much bigger magnitude than people expected. I think if you go and you focus on China, China is a big market. It's a big consumer market for a lot of our companies. And I think you have to worry about the change for the Chinese consumer. We're talking about, on the macro front, this is a consumer that, had to get an iPhone. They wanted to be more Western, right? They're upgrading. Has the iPhone upgrade cycle for them slowed down? Most definitely. Are they now faced with a slowing economy that they're seeing their growth keeps coming down? I think the mindset of the consumer over there has also changed, and that provides a much different market to sell into.